Hello, we are back with our third video on Selenium integration tests, and in this one we'll focus on NUnit and a couple of interesting features that we want to use. First of them is, I would say, is the ability to categorize tests with arbitrary tags. So we're looking at our basic test fixture with using NUnit's markup. What category attribute allows us to do is to put an arbitrary label or tag on the test fixture, and which then NUnit will understand and allows you to use. For example, I label this test with two tags, community test and smoke tests, and then ReSharper understands it and NUnit understands it and allows me to run, for example, all smoke tests in this category, or all community tests. Or, for example, I can put my name in here and say this is my test, and then you can run all your tests and whatnot. And later in another video we'll go over our conventions and what we want to use for categorization, but basically that's the gist of it. Next, let's go over a typical test and dive into permutations. So we have here an extract of our previous little program, which simply logs in. To prove that it still works, I'm going to compile. I'm going to run it. Alright, logged in. Cool. Test is passing. All is great. Now, we want some kind of assertion here that our login succeeded. And a good one might be a destination on after the login. So where do we arrive? For example, I am talking about enterprise login, of course. So there is was no community here. My login, enterprise login, should arrive on this page, and I'm going to use this path as check for the test success. Might look like this. Okay, so what we have here is we are analyzing the URL on which we arrive after the submit, and we are asserting that the path of this URL should be that, because we know this is a cross community member and etc. etc. But what if we want to test the case of a single community member being always redirected to their community, even from the enterprise login page? So, for example, this is a single community member, and even from the enterprise login, I will be redirected to /Cafe Gourmet. So at this point, of course, we can just copy and paste that test, name it something else, put another username here and another condition here. Will be terribly inefficient. It's a very bad use of copy and paste, because we'll need to maintain those tests separately should something change here and here. We could, of course, also refactor this inner logic into some other private reusable method and kind of call it multiple times here with different usernames and whatnot and different tests. So NUnit allows you to do that through their own markup attributes. And one of the ways to do it is through so-called test cases. So if we introduce username as an input and expected destination path as another input, and we're going to do this, that, and then make sure that our path matches what we expect. We can tell NUnit to run a couple of test cases for us, and it just follows the order of parameters. In this case, we're going to do member at menuspace.com, expected, do that later, and then the other one is so let's see if the first one passes, it shouldn't, and the second one should pass. And you will see that hopefully it runs it multiple times. So let's say run all. So ReSharper automatically detects that we have two test cases here, one for this and combination of parameters and another one for this one. So let's run them all. Okay, as expected, this test passed, but this one failed because our input was incorrect, and let me fix that. Alright, so this would be the proper input for the test, and let's see if that fixes both tests, or rather the failing test. Alright, good enough. Okay. Now, let's do something else. So assume we want to do a cross-browser basic login test. So it's not about cross-community members or not. It's about making sure that login works in multiple browsers and works correctly. So we can say we go back to our hard-coded. Let me pause. Okay, so we have because we're focusing on the cross-browser test, we have our input hard-coded again. But what we're doing instead is we are passing in the WebDriver type as a parameter, and we have it defined right here. So we have multiple possible WebDrivers we could use, a little WebDriver factory which knows how to create them based on the type, etc. So that's what happens. What we want to do here is do so-called combinatorial test, where we don't define each test case specifically. We instead let NUnit do that, and in this case we're saying, let me pause. Okay, I was putting the values attribute in the wrong place, so it belongs at the parameter level. So what it does here is it says basically enumerate the input of this parameter with those values, and if there are more, do a complete combinatorial test on all the possible permutations. So in this example, it's just one parameter, so it's going to be only two tests, and it automatically recognizes them and runs them. What you'll see is that a Chrome instance is created, and then Firefox instance is created, and the same test is run. Okay, so of course the nice thing about it is that it is literally the same test, and if it is written correctly in the cross-browser fashion, then it simply runs, and you can even run an AE test, and in theory use mobile drivers here in the future. So what else? So another example, let me enhance it in a little bit and come back. Okay, so here, in addition to enumerating by WebDriver type, we also introduce our own concept of a browser size, because we know our login is now responsive, and it should work in all browser resolutions. And say we introduced, here's my little browser size enum, and it's has 3 values, and then through some additional code we can figure out that the width of the browser window for a given size should be that, and height should be that. And what we're doing here is we're telling, hey, WebDriver, give me the management interface and the browser window, and let me resize it. So therefore, because now this is a combinatorial test, it will permutate all 2 browser types with all 3 sizes of the browser, and it should run the same test 6 times with all these permutations. So as you see, it's the same test with different parameters, and if you structure code well, it just runs, and it automatically creates the new driver, resizes it, does the necessary assertions, etc., etc. So we'll stop at that, and next time we'll go over our own framework, which revolves around all these concepts and our conventions and how we structure our own tests and can reuse them. See you later.